Welcome to this episode of the Beacon of Light podcast. We are here with Dr. Mike Lewis. Um, you and I met, I think it was last weekend, right? At that amino acid conference. So, and just to set this up, this conference is one of those things where people are just, talking like you were, and then the rest of us are just kind of picking and choosing. And it's like a good pair of shoes. Sometimes the person is talking is good and captures your attention, and sometimes it isn't. By virtue of the fact that you are on this podcast would give a strong indicator to the people listening that I was very intrigued with the things that you had to say. Um, your military career, and so I'm just going to let you talk about your career, and I'm just going to kind of interject with some questions here and there, and talk about what you did in the military, right? And then we're gonna transfer over and talk about the importance of aminos, and we're gonna talk about the important not aminos but the omegas, right? Yeah, we just did a podcast with Shelly Joe about the aminos. That's why, and how the omegas affect the brain and how it will affect uh, the people that are in treatment at Beacon Recovery or any other facility for that matter to curb their appetite for their cravings. So, military career, you were in the U.S. Army.
That's correct. Out of high school, I went to West Point. I was commissioned as an intel officer by way of Airborne Ranger School and all that fun stuff. 5 years in infantry divisions overseas and in the U.S. And then what am I going to do when I grow up? And I went to Tulane Medical School. I always wanted to be a doctor.
So, hold on a sec. Did you start off as enlisted or were you a zero the whole way?
The longer story, but the short story is I went from high school to West Point to
Okay.
U.S. Military Academy to
Okay.
commission. I did a little bit of time enlisted in the Navy as a teenager for the fun of it, and said, "No, I'm never going to do this."
Okay.
I'm only going to be an officer. No,
Yeah, and I can certainly
really.
because I did some time in the Navy until I got smart and went into the Army, but that's a conversation for another day. Okay, so West Point, and then when did you become a doctor?
So I did my 5 year commitment from West Point, and then trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had my father was a doctor, my mother's a nurse. Kind of grew up around medicine, and so I after my 5 year commitment, I went to Tulane Medical School down in New Orleans, and did it on a Army scholarship because it only made sense that instead of going a couple $100,000 in debt.
Yeah.
uh, Already, knew what the Army was about, might as well just kind of keep rolling with it. So, had determined I was going to be a surgeon, went to Walter Reed, did a surgical internship, and then at the time I was going to go into urology, and there weren't any slots. So the head of urology got me assigned at the Pentagon for a couple of years until a slot opened up. So at the Pentagon, because of my prior service, I was sort of the senior guy of the junior guys, if you will. So I was running the primary care clinic, the emergency medical services for the entire 28,000 people medical Pentagon complex.
It's a big building, isn't it?
It's a big building. There's 28,000 people that work in and around the Pentagon that we were responsible for. Small city, right? It's bigger than the city I grew up in, or in the town I grew up.
Oh, hold on a sec. For those of us that have only heard about that, let's just real quick. They have everything you need there, right?
Oh,
In other
well,
words,
yeah, I mean, we had I call it a multi-specialty clinic, and it was outpatient. There was no inpatient facilities.
I'm talking about places to go to restaurants.
Oh, yeah,
right?
you could spend, a year in the Pentagon and never leave. Um,
Like an aircraft carrier, they're self-sustaining, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. From, an extensive medical clinic to restaurants and barber shop and
Do
and
they
all
have
kinds.
hotels and stuff there too? No.
No, no,
But you probably have places you can sleep in your
I'm sure
showers, gyms.
shower, gym. I'm sure there's places, for overnight shifts and stuff like that. I'm sure there's
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
of spelunking going on, but for the most part, those would be in places that you can't get into, that don't exist.
Now, if I'm understanding what you said to us, you were the guy medically. Is that correct?
There's a clinic commander was a colonel, '06. Came in as a senior captain in '03, got promoted in '04 while I was there. So there was that. I mean,
What? Like, I know what you just said. And I made reference to the zero thing a minute ago. You have O1, which is the butter bar, right? That's the lower level of officers, and then it goes all the way up to O, I think what, nine, O 10, as as a general, right? And so now you're talking about O 04, O 03, which I think is that a captain? I think that's a captain, and then O 04 would be a major. Then you go to lieutenant colonel, and then colonel, and every one of those is an O after followed with a number.
one, two,
Yeah, yeah.
three, four, five.
Okay.
And from 99% of people, particularly in the medical field, the maximum rank is typically '06 or colonel. The selection of general officer is very, very few and far between. You have to sort of check the boxes and do those types of things that I just had no interest in doing. So,
So obviously you've got a career in the military. Now, I want to talk about you having an inability to not tell the truth, or you have the strong desire to tell the truth pretty much regardless of who you're talking to. And I'm referring to a story you share with us that I want you to recant. I know you know what I'm talking about, where you're talking as a. Now, are you a lieutenant colonel or a full bird at this moment when you're having this?
I was a full bird colonel.
And by the way, just to put this
I'll
in
put this
perspective,
6 weeks, 6 weeks from retirement.
and just to put this into perspective, from my perspective as being enlisted, when you see those guys and gals walking around with that full bird, that bird on his collar, that that's respect for me. Because by the time you guys get to that moment, those are the officers that really know what it is they're talking about. But in the terms of the conversation and the people you're running around with, a full bird is like peanuts compared to these guys. I mean, right?
And that was an interesting thing, right? So working in the Pentagon as a captain, as a junior guy.
Yeah,
Now, the clinic commander was a full bird colonel.
yeah.
The cardiologist the deputy commander was a full bird colonel, and I was a captain, but I was the senior of the junior guys. So I'm the one that made the show happen. So I ran the primary care clinic, the emergency medical services, like I said, the executive medicine. So we took care of those generals and secretaries of defense and I mean chief clerk of the Supreme Court and so on and so on. So I was used to running around. This will come into, handy when we talk about what you want to talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I used to running around with those guys. The chief of staff of the army, the guy number one general in the army called me up and said, "Hey doc, I need to see you." And I'd go grab a bag and I'd run up to his office and so those are guys I did house calls on these guys literally,
These are the
I
guys we're
grew up,
seeing.
I grew up around it, so it wasn't any big deal for me to interact with all these people.
With these people that, to put it in perspective, when you're looking at sometimes the president of the United States, these are the people that
I
he is
actually
conversing with.
for him a little bit, one or a couple of times as well.
Okay, so that just we're painting a picture for the circles in which you ran with regularity that the most of us only see on shows on TV. This is real life stuff. These are the big shots making decisions for our country and the future of our country. Correct?
I got bored with it, so I started traveling with Congress, and that was even more interesting. So then I'm Then I'm dining with prime ministers and presidents and ambassadors and so on all around the world. One year I was in 34 different countries with members of Congress and others. So
All the while, you're learning, which is,
absolutely.
and we're gonna and learning, and when I say learning, that's where the omegas come into play because that's what really captured my attention. Um, because you didn't skirt the truth for self improvement. You're just going to tell the truth, which takes us to that conversation where you now this is with or is it, you want to set this up?
Let me set the stage for this.
Yeah.
I ended up not going into urology. I actually ended up there was a program that caught my attention that had just been started in infectious disease, international infectious disease. So I ended up doing my residency training, my specialty training in preventive medicine and public health through Johns Hopkins, the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. So I was trained in international infectious disease, and I was sent over to Bangkok, Thailand for a number of years, and I was a disease hunter. So my job was, and I was at ground zero of SARS and bird flu and other things. I did like national level outbreak
Scary
investigation.
shit. This is scary. This is scary stuff.
Oh, it was fun. I didn't want to late. So, I get a
Oh
call
my
one
god.
in the morning, like, hey, the science
Oh.
officer saying, I know you want to stay in Thailand, 2 more years, but we're the army, it basically, now I got you an assignment teaching at the medical school in Bethesda, Maryland. And I'm like, why the hell do I do that? And he's like, we're the army. We're not giving you a choice. And, you can go to Fort Hood if you want. We need a position there. I'm like, "Yeah, I'll teach."
Yeah.
And so now Iraq, Afghanistan are going on, and we were at the grounds of the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. The big hospital everybody's heard of and knows, and the medical school's right behind it. And so you go to the gym, there's guys there missing two or three or four limbs, and they're still going to the gym and exercising. And you're like, I put two and two together. I came up with an odd number. And I went to the head of the Defense Veteran Brain Injury Center. I said, is anybody looking at the use of omega-3s like you would get from fish oil to help our soldiers recover from traumatic brain injury? And he thought about it and he said, no, why don't you?
What's his rank?
What's that?
What's his rank? This guy.
He was civilian.
Oh, okay. All right. A GS. A GS. Right.
I'm not really sure. That was kind of this weird little hybrid type of thing. But
Okay.
he was an MD, PhD from Ireland, actually, originally. Um, and so he's, no, why don't you? And I'm like, I don't know anything about it. And he's, but you're the only one asking the question.
Doesn't that
So
bug
kind
you
of
a little? Does that right out of the gate? Doesn't that kind of bother you that
well,
nobody's
yeah,
asking these
I just
questions? Yeah.
for me it was common sense. I mean, I'm not a neurologist, I'm not a neurosurgeon, I'm not this, I'm not that. But it bothered me because to me it just made sense. The brain's made of fat. Why aren't we using fat to help repair the brain? And that was December of 2006. I've been talking about this since then, and it's still people were like, "Huh? What?"
To
And
this day.
it's yeah, today. Nobody
Yeah.
and so I knew I had to go out and learn. Who knew anything about the brain and omega-3s, and particularly in the setting of trauma? And that led me to about two or three people in the world that knew anything about it. Um, and I got called to a meeting at the Research and Development Command up at Fort Detrick a couple weeks later, and there was a neurosurgeon that was showing some of the research that he had done in the lab with, hitting rats over the head kind of thing. And everybody stops at one point and staring at me, and I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Well, you're the DoD subject matter expert on this. What do you think?" And in my head, I'm thinking, "Boy, we're in trouble because I'm
Yeah, yeah.
I'm learning." And then I go home and I stop by a friend's house whose father was in town. And he's this world famous trauma surgeon at University of Florida at the time. And I told him that story, and he goes, "Well, that's not true." I said, "I mean, what do you mean?" And he goes, "I've never heard anybody, not just in the military, because he was in the Navy Reserves." He goes, "I've never heard anybody talking about the things you're talking about ever." And I, and then I think I blurted out, I'm like, "Now I know we're in trouble."
Yeah.
I mean, that was the
Wait, and
beginning.
wait, tell me again, what year is this?
This is 2006, maybe early 2007.
Doesn't that just that's I find that I mean, I know you're telling me the truth, but I find it hard to believe. I really do.
Yeah, I just thought it was common sense. Why isn't everybody doing this?
And nobody's doing
Well,
it.
the story gets much worse.
Okay. Oh, as per the yeah.
So one of the people I've got to learn, get to know, is this guy who's a psychiatrist at the NIH, and in fact, the NIAAA, the National Institute of Alcohol and Alcohol Abuse. And he had been at that point 15, 20 years of researching on the omega-3s in our food supply and the effect on substance abuse. And as I'm learning from him, as we're getting to be friends, I think one night we were talking, and he says, if we could just draw blood on people before they commit suicide, we could answer a lot of questions. And I'm like, why didn't you say that before? That's easy. And he looked at me like I was crazy, right? And he's a psychiatrist, so I had to worry a little bit there. Because I'm like, no, no, no. There's like 60, 50, 60, 70,000 or 70 million, sorry, like 70 million blood specimens in a freezer in in Silver Spring, Maryland, a couple miles from where we were, with
Now
all
these
the
hold on a sec. These are blood samples that are drawn.
describe it.
Okay.
So blood samples in a freezer with all of DOD's data behind it. So anytime after the first Gulf War, remember Gulf War syndrome? So that was the genesis of this freezer, and that we should have blood before people have an issue, and then we can care before and after we can compare the samples. And so every time you have blood drawn, like for an HIV test or something, if there was leftover blood, they would spit it down, stick it in a freezer, and send it off to Silver Spring, Maryland.
Wait,
So
this isn't people in the military. This is just anybody in general.
no, this is military.
Military. Okay, this is all military personnel. Okay.
All military personnel. So with like again, all of the DoD's data behind it. And so we dug out of there, we requested and dug out of there 100 documented suicides per year for 8 years after 9/11, and then 800 well-matched controls.
Hold on a sec. These are vials of blood for people that have killed themselves. But the vials of blood that they gave before are somewhere, and that's what you got. Now you're looking at these people's DNA in their blood that committed suicide.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead. I'm ready.
And you have to understand there's no question about a suicide. In the military, if somebody dies on active duty, there's an investigation. And so these are documented, investigated suicides from active duty. We only looked at active duty. And with 800 well-matched controls, an interesting thing, after the fact, I thought to ask how many suicides were there during that time. We only chose 800. There were 3,200 suicides during that period, and that's active duty. We're not talking about veterans. We're talking about active duty military.
Yeah.
So when we looked at it, we basically determined two major findings. One is that the omega-3 levels in the blood were profoundly low in 95% of the samples. And we're talking 1,600
But now,
samples.
hold on a sec, Doc, because we get our omegas from our food. What are you talking about? How the well, I mean, really?
Oh, how naive are you?
That's what I'm saying to you. I mean, that's how naive we were. That's how naive we are now. Because that's what I'm saying to you. I mean, what do you that I know different, you know different, but somebody listening is going to say, "What are you talking about? We get our omegas from our food." How naive are we, right? Really? Yeah.
We can go down. That's a whole nother path to go down. But so we looked at and so profoundly low levels of omega-3, but still when we separated out and we looked at suicides versus the controls, there was a 62% increased risk of suicide with low omega-3 levels. And that ratio I talked at the conference, we talked about the omega-6 and the omega-3 ratio.
Yeah.
So omega-6s and omega-3s, just to back up for a half a second, omega-6, omega-3, both they're absolutely important, vital for life in our brain, a major part of the fat in our brain. But omega-6s and omega-3s were meant to be in balance. And omega-6s, the very short thing is omega-6 is the downstream effect of that cause inflammation and omega-3s are supposed to resolve the inflammation. So you can imagine why that's supposed to be in balance. Same thing with clotting of the blood. Omega-6s promote clotting of the blood, omega-3s keep the blood from clotting. So that's a delicate balance. They need to be balanced because they share all the same enzymes. Historically, in mankind, for tens of hundreds of thousands of years, we were in balance. That's why the enzymes in the process were like that. But then comes along the Industrial Revolution. And now we start to process foods and we start to change and then we're farming and we're not just living off the land. And so now that omega-6 level starts to creep up. And then we get post World War II. We've put a man on the moon. There's nothing we can't do. We've conquered polio and this and the other. How can we have starving children in Appalachia? Farm bills. Let's create corporate farming to make as much food as we can for as cheap as we can and send it around the world. Well,
Glycosides. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so that really was the advent of corporate farming in the 60s going into 1970, where now we're growing soybean leaps and bounds, 16 to 20 fold increase of the amount of soybean oil consumed in the United States just between like 1960 and the end of the century. 20-fold increase. So why, I don't eat soybean. Well, yeah, you do. It's in everything.
Everything. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
no, you don't eat soybean and corn, but guess what? That chicken and that cow
Was
and
fed
that
that.
pig is what's fed it. And so it's
Yep.
now ubiquitous throughout the food supply. So we're swimming in omega-6s. Those ratios gone up to, 15, 20, 20. The military study I did, 26 to 1 is the ratio. That was 15 years ago. You think it's gotten any
Imagine
better?
what it is now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you think it's gotten any better? Pretty sure it has not. So I floated this study up, this data up to the leadership of the Army and said, I want the Army to try to get ahead of this before we publish it. And it basically got kicked back saying, we don't believe it. It's BS, whatever. Make sure the numbers are right. I had somebody else, the head of experimental therapeutics for the Army, F. Fulberg Colonel. He floats it back up he goes, I'm going to take this to the Surgeon General. He comes back, tail between his legs. They don't believe it, whatever. And so we said, screw it. We published it. So it ends up on the front page of every newspaper in the country, CNN, headline news, and so on.
Then hold on a sec.
And I tried to
The
let the Army get ahead of it, but they had no
They
interest.
didn't. I'm sure that went over like a lead balloon with the people you tried to. I mean, right? I mean, because you went to them and said, like, you're full of shit. Don't even, and then you're like, well,
No,
piss.
it's even worse. It's even worse than that. I think the head of experimental therapeutics or somebody was on an email chain where the three-star Surgeon General and the two-star Commanding General of the Research and Development Command back and forth saying, how do we shut this guy up and get rid of him?
I I remember you saying that you said that at the conference. How do we get rid of this guy? So not only is it he's full of maybe they know, but why? And I know we don't maybe know, maybe you do know why. Why are they trying to? Is it because they want people in the military and in general to be unhealthy? Is that
I think it's a combination of not understanding. You could call that ignorance. I don't think it's nefarious. I don't think it's like some big pharma conspiracy. I just think it's doctors aren't taught nutrition. And therefore, you're like some weird naturopathic doctor or chiropractor or something like that. How can you be an MD and talking about nutrition? So now right? So fast forward through past a couple of things. So now I get called to the Pentagon to brief a four-star general, the guy that runs the army, right? And this is a guy that was well known for being the point person for suicide in the military. That was his biggest focus at the time.
to want to
And
prevent it?
trying to prevent it. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Let's do art therapy or pet a horse or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Uh, well, hold on a sec. There is something to be said for working with horses. There is.
discounted, but
Yeah,
that
yeah. I get it. So now you're having a conversation with this man.
so now I'm in his office, and it was a Wednesday night, and I can tell you that because of where this is going. It's Wednesday night, probably around 7 or 7 o'clock or night or so at late October of 2011, and I'm about 6 weeks from retirement. And I tell the general I'm getting ready to retire. I'm going to tell you what I think, not what you want to hear. And I wouldn't want it any other way. I'm like, yeah, you haven't heard what I literally said. You haven't heard what I've had to say yet.
You're ready. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I started to show him the science, and he goes, and I said, well, let's have a conversation about this. I started showing him the science. He goes, well, what's the downside? I'm like, it's fish oil. What are we talking about? A downside here? And he goes, there's no downside. Well, that's not what the Army Surgeon General tells me. I'm like, what does he tell you? And he goes, and it was like, wah, 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 wah. I stopped listening because I was laughing. And you
Right.
understand, and you get the idea, right? You got a four-star general and a colonel. There's a bit of difference in rank here. Um,
Hold on a sec. There is a lot of difference in rank. This is major difference. This is like you're shedding light in the fact that you're just this you know full board colonel, and there's a huge difference. This guy's got 4 stars on. This is like, yeah, this is a big thing.
it
Yeah. Oh, and the person you're talking about is a 2 star.
three-star.
Oh, pardon me. You know what? That's also so. Once again, you're just a little peon colonel, and we're talking. You're saying what about the 3 star?
So I said, what does he say? And the general starts telling me well something, and I just started laughing because it was so stupid and ridiculous. I don't even remember what he said. And he stopped. He goes, "What's so funny?" And I said, "Well, he's full of shit." And,
Here's my yeah,
and then he
yeah.
says, "What?" And I said, "He's full of shit, sir."
That's the best part of the story for me, right there. Kinda, yeah.
And he goes, "You're telling me Lieutenant General so and so, the Army Surgeon General, three-star general, my chief medical advisor, who, by the way, happens to have an MD and a PhD in nutrition from Harvard Medical School. You're telling me he's full of shit." And I said, "Yes, sir, that's exactly what I'm telling you."
Come on. Let me just being in the military myself, that is what we call balls. It really is. But here's the thing.
Kick me out of the military? I was already
You
had
didn't
my
care. Still, I mean, come on,
had
dude.
my retirement.
I know, but it's still, we're talking about a 4 star general. I mean, but the reason I know is because what you're doing is, well, you're telling the truth. The truth. It's that's so it's.
Don't like to hear the people in power don't like to hear the truth all the time.
I find that the people that have the biggest problem with the truth are the ones that are furthest from it.
Well, and the four-star general wanted to know the truth.
Did he?
It was the steps below him that didn't or didn't want to know the truth, didn't want to hear the truth, or didn't want to be
Made to
Shut up.
look.
I always found, in my experience in the military, especially with the medical corps, egos were a very fragile thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not, well, not caring. I'm going to say not knowing that. I knew, but I didn't give a shit. Um, I, I, I'll tell a little minor bad story on myself is when I was a captain at the Pentagon in '03, right down at the bottom of the ranks, I got a letter of reprimand from the Surgeon General of the Army, and I still made it to full bird colonel. I won't even tell you the story behind that. And then so obviously I was a bit of trouble telling the truth then. Uh, there was three more times that I stepped on senior people's egos because I didn't give a shit what they thought. I was going to do what I thought was right.
But here's the thing, though. I know that if somebody would have come to you and said, you're saying this, let's take a look at this, and I'm going to show you that you, in fact, are full of shit, you would have said, okay, let's talk. Show me that I'm wrong, right? Prove me wrong. But that never happened, right? Did it? In other words, you're telling the truth. And how, see, it just, this is, we're talking about the blood work where it shows I don't remember what the numbers you used, the decrease in the omega 3s in these people that commit suicide. That's like, ding, 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 ding. I mean, we here.
And that's why I wanted the Army to get ahead of it. I spent
Yeah.
30.5 years in the Army. My entire adult life up to that point, I didn't want the Army. And the Army had screwed me over so many times because of those fragile egos. You'd think I would have just said, I don't care and just done it. But I did care. And I cared even after I retired because now my cohort that I grew up with, they became the 2 and the 3 and the 4-star generals later on. And, I was retired. But one of my roommates became the chief of staff of the Army, the top 4-star in the Army. Another good classmate, good friend of mine, became the 4-star general in charge of all special operations in the entire military. I mean, another good friend was a 3-star general who became the national security advisor. We played rugby together, we're like really good friends.
Yeah.
I grew up around these people. And so, speaking truth to power never really bothered me. It's the egos of some of these people that's been the problem.
And here we are, and it bugs me to even, I mean, here we are, this, in 2025. And I mean, look, I've heard of fish oils. There's not an adult. I don't know what the percent. I mean, we all know about fish oils, but do we? Do we? Because I damn sure didn't. I mean, really. I mean, did I know the tremendous value in omega threes? What exactly is an omega three? And tell me, us, how does it affect? I mean, what exactly is happening? First of all, I think you said that we're supposed to have, and you mentioned it multiple times, a balance of 3 and 6, right? And we've got this increase in 6 and a decrease in 3. And then in a minute, we'll talk about the 9 because you mentioned the 9 at the conference as well. But what you're suggesting, and I'm going to be inclined to agree with you, which is why we're bringing these, which is why we're having this conversation. We're bringing this stuff in to Beacon Recovery, and every facility that I'm involved with, we're going to push this stuff because I believe it. I really do, because now you have access to some studies that speak to the validity of these things we're talking about now, decreasing the craving effect in someone's brain. Did I understand that correctly?
100%.
Let's talk about
So,
that. Yeah.
yeah, so omega 6s, omega 3s are essential fatty acids, meaning that our bodies don't make them. You have to consume them, right? So that's rule number one. But we also look at the short chain omega 3s, linolenic acid and alpha linoleic acid on the omega 3 side. So those are short chain omega 3s. They have to be elongated using those enzymes, elongated up to the long chain ones, which we find in our brain. And that system is actually really inefficient. There's been studies where they've used radio labeled ALA consumed and 0.04% end up actually incorporated into the cell wall in the brain.
Okay,
So
wait,
it's a
hold on a
small.
sec. You're gonna. I need you to slow down for the rest of us that aren't at your level, right? And if I understood what you just said to us, what you're saying is, and we're going to go very simplistic, somebody's consuming whatever it is they're supposed to be consuming, and the objective is whatever we're consuming is supposed to make its way up here, and we take this thinking, oh look, we're going to take this, whatever it is, what you just said, and we
The dark leafy green vegetables, the flaxseed, the spinach, all those
all that.
green vegetable things that are really important. I'm not
Yes.
saying these are
Yeah,
not
yeah.
important,
Well, how are they
but
grown? Where are they grown? What's being sprayed on them? We'll talk about that's a conversation for another day. But I'm talking about you're thinking and whoever your mind is that I'm eating these things and the benefit, I feel good, but you're saying less than, did I get you right? Less than 1% is making its way to where it needs to be?
yes. Now
So,
there's still variability, but I've never heard anybody report anything more than 4%. And it just depends on what you were talking about. I can tell you, I know the person that did the radio labeled one, where literally you put radio labeled carbon into the system, and what it 0.04% ends up in the brain.
that doesn't seem very efficient to me. I mean, I'm not a,
No, it's not. All right, so let me tell you another quick little story. There's a professor in the UK. He's around 90 years old or so now. I've been skiing with him just a few years ago. Great guy. He literally is like the grandfather of omega-3 research, and he said mankind could not have grown up in the plains of Africa because they did not have access to long chain omega-3s like you get from fish. Mankind had to develop on the east coast of Africa with access to seafood. And part of this, a rhinoceros is a mammal, eats 1 to 2 tons of grass a day. Talk about leafy green vegetables. 1 to 2 tons of grass a day. How big are their brains? Think of a rhinoceros, about the size of a walnut. Think about a dolphin. What does a dolphin eat? It eats seafood. How big is the brain? It's as big as a human brain. Big difference between consuming long chain omega-3s like you get from seafood or animal meat and short chain omega-3s like you get from eating leafy green vegetables. In fact, some of the worst omega-6 to 3 ratios I've ever seen have been in vegans and vegetarians because they don't eat animal meat. They're eating all these short chain omega-3s, and that conversion is not good at all.
yeah, but those people you just referred to, if they chose to, they could take some form of omega 3s in a capsule or liquid form and achieve a balance, I think. Is that, did I, which means, which means there's hope for us. And when I say us, I'm talking about those of us that don't know what you know, right? And one of the things that I really enjoyed about what you guys are doing, you guys being the company that you're representing, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, is there's a test, right? There's a test that, look, a couple $100, give me a break, right?
Not even that. I mean,
What is it?
175 at full retail, but
Yeah. Now,
who pays
let's
retail anymore, right?
well, so this test that we're talking about, if you have any questions, if you're curious at all, which I don't know how you cannot be, where is your ratio? What is it? I mean, can I go like for me? I'm retired military as well. I think we shared that. I can go. A matter of fact, I just went to the VA and got my yearly thing. Right? Didn't know that's what it was. They have an appointment and I go and they draw a bunch of blood. Didn't tell me I was supposed to fast. They probably should have said that to me. They didn't. But in that blood work that they drew on me, none of it talked about none of it. There was no, and it kind of bugs me. It, actually, no, it pisses me off because if I can achieve a better life in all aspects of my life by getting the right balance, this test for, and I say a couple $100, 175, it's a no-brainer, an absolute no-brainer. Because then I can say, hey, my omega 6 is up way up above, and I'm almost next to nil on my threes. What do I got to do to bring those sixes down and the threes up? Is that where we are? Is that what we're talking about?
Right. And it's a ratio. And so how can you bring your sixes down? Trying to eat healthy, a pescatarian kind of diet, or is a little bit better, but a
What? Oh, hold on a
Mediterranean.
sec. What does that mean? See what
Okay.
pescatarian? Hold on. I'm
Fish.
looking straight into the cameras.
A
Did you know what that meant? Because I did not know what a
a,
pescatarian diet meant.
basically a vegetarian with fish and eggs. I might even have that wrong. Let's just go with a Mediterranean style diet. That basically, honestly, the most simple way is stop eating crap.
You know, you mean, it's interesting because I responded to something on Facebook where the person is asking, what is the best way for us to relieve inflammation? And these people were making all these comments, turmeric, and then, and I'm like, what is this nonsense? And I put in capital letters, stop eating sugar. That might help out the equation for all of us, right? I mean, our lives would, how much better we're all, and that's what I've been doing, right? And it's hard to do, right?
It
It
is.
really, really is
Well,
hard.
because sugar, processed sugar. Now there's different types of sugar, but
Yeah,
processed sugar is really addictive.
as it's supposed to be. It's by design.
Right. And especially when you start to talk about high fructose corn syrup and other forms of processed, ultra
Yeah,
processed
yeah.
sugar, then it really becomes addictive. And yeah, so here's the real bottom line. What like in a half a sentence is eat real food. Eat food from nature. If you go and buy food, it should spoil within a week in your refrigerator.
So there is a dairy farm kind of a place that I discovered here in Heber City, and they sell this milk, right? And it's actually in glass containers like milk used to be. And I've been buying it, but I got to drink that stuff real quick because if I don't, I got a half gallon of it or I got a quarter gallon of it sitting in my fridge, and I'm afraid to pour it out because as soon as I open it, well, I didn't drink it quick enough, right? That is really good information to have when you buy food, whatever it is, in your refrigerator. If it's not spoiling in a week or less, then you need to change the food you're buying.
It's kind of like your mother, great grandmother, not mother, but more your grandmother, your great grandmother.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they used to go shopping almost every day because you had to buy the food fresh. But it was fresh food. It
Okay,
wasn't just processed food.
I'm going to ask you a question that you may or may not, but I've always wondered, and I know that a lot of us are wondering, when you go to the grocery store, and you may not know the answer to this, and you see where it says organic, is it really organic? Oh, see, right there, that right there tells me that I'm right. Is it? It's not organic. It probably comes from
There
the same.
is, I don't know what to believe anymore, honestly. When it comes to organic,
Yeah.
I don't know what to believe anymore because what does that even mean? Organic.
Exactly. I tell you what I think it means. I think it means that when they're bringing these vegetables in, right, on the conveyor belt, there's a little thing that goes this way, and all these vegetables go, and then at some point somebody says, "Okay, we got enough of those. Flip it over, and then this, and these are going to be labeled with organic." That's what I think that means because nobody really. How do you know? So how do you what can you recommend to these people listening to this? You said eat. How? Where do you buy your food? How does somebody do this? How does that work?
Well, all right. So, I mean, trying to keep it in the basic terms,
Yes.
you walk into most grocery stores. It might be variable a little bit, but typically you walk in the front door of a grocery store, you turn to the right, and there's all the fruits and vegetables. That's where you should be shopping. And then you get to the back corner, and there's the dairy, and then along the back side, there's the meats and things like that. And then you got the freezer section over on the far left. Um, so basically, they say shop around the outside of a grocery store. Everything in the middle is crap. Anything that's in a box, a can, or whatever is generally just crap.
So the
And
next time
most of the stuff in the freezer section as well.
is what? Crap.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
So I feel, I mean, I've been
Now
loading
there's
up on
exceptions, right? You know, can you argue how good is you're buying green beans in the fresh fruits and vegetables section versus green beans that were
frozen.
flash frozen right there
Yeah,
on the farm? Probably those are probably better for you, have retained their
nutritional
nutrients
value.
better
Yeah,
than even the green beans that had to be shipped from Mexico or California across the country, you know, and how, you know, they had to be picked early because they kind of ripen in transit and things like that. So
yeah.
uh, if you ever spent any time outside the US, I just like my wife, I remember we were in Thailand and I never liked watermelon until I had watermelon in Thailand because now I know what it actually tastes like.
Yeah. Um, so the next time you're in a grocery store, try it. Look at the outer edges and look at the crap that's sold on the inside. But even if you go to the vegetable section, you don't really know, right? You don't know, but it's better than the junk that's in the center of the grocery store. But now another question I've got for you is I have been eating, ironically enough, since I listened to you talk, right? Really, I went over to Costco, right? And I spent quite a bit of money on what I thought was the best fish that I could get. It's what is it? Not the farm, because you can get salmon that's farm, and then you can get wild. And the wild stuff I find is well considerably more expensive. But I, listening to you talk,
Difference.
well,
Again, what is the farmed fish being fed?
who knows?
And if you look carefully, and I'll pick on Whole Foods for half a second because right there they're going to be side by side. You've got the fresh, you know, the wild caught salmon and the farm salmon generally like right next to each other, and you can
Yeah,
just
it
see
looks
the
different.
difference. You can see the
Yes,
difference in color, but
yes.
what you may not notice in the fine print under the farm salmon, color added.
I didn't see. All I did when I, after listening
They
to
had to
you,
add coloring
to
to
make it
make
look right.
it look like
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Well, I just I went and I bought probably I bought because I got a deep freezer. I just bought a bunch, and I just cut it in sections for a meal, and then ziplocked that and stuck those in the freezer. Oh, but I also poured some lemon pepper stuff on there for seasoning, so you know, and then now when I want to eat, and I'm eating more fish and chicken than you know with my leafy greens, you know, my spinach, my baby spinach, and but we're still bring I still am I need to bring in the omega 3s, right? And those tests. Talk about those tests real quick.
So the test basically looks at 11 fatty acids that we know to measure. So it's not just well, there's different omega 6s, there's different omega 3s. And so it looks at 11 different ones, including some saturated fats, as well as, like you said, omega 9 fat, like you would get from olive oil, for example. And so it looks at the test in different ways. Let me back up for half a second. It's a test you can do at home at your kitchen table. You don't have to have a doctor's prescription to do it. You literally take the little lancet, press it against your finger, and it goes bink, and and you go drip, 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 drip on the little filter paper. You tear off the card that has the number. You put the filter paper in a little sleeve. You put it in a little um, envelope, and then you put it in the mailing envelope, and off it goes. In the United States, it's uh, postage paid. It gets sent, collected up in Florida and sent to Oslo, Norway, where the laboratory that does that testing is the most prestigious laboratory in all of Europe and probably all the world. They've done over 2 million of these tests, about 1.5 million for this company alone. And so they've got the biggest database of omega-3 data anywhere in the world from this testing. So you take that little card that has the number on it, and you go online and you make sure you register it. I always tell people make sure you take a picture of it because you're going to lose the card. So you register it with some basic information. Am I taking any fish oil? That type of thing. How old are you, and are you male or female? Or don't want to answer, whatever. um, so you register it, but you've sent it off in the mail, and a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks later, you get an email and it says, "Hey, do you want to know your test results ending in 1, 2, 3, 4?" It's not even giving you, so you got to have that card. So you go into that and you put in the full 12-digit number, and it gives you the results. And the first thing you see is a big box that is either red, yellow, or green. Red being you are out of balance.
Got some problems. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the problems. And yellow meaning you're semi-balanced,
Yeah.
pretty close. You're doing okay, but you could be doing better. And green, of course, you're doing where you should be. That ratio should be, you won't get a green box until you're 3 to 1 or better. But the so
Wait a
the
minute. Three to
that
one. Three.
three omega-6s to one omega-3. The
Okay.
ratio of 6s to 3.
Okay.
Now, there are studies that show a ratio of 4 to 1 or better, 3 to 1, 2 to 1, and so on, 70% decrease risk of death, and particularly cardiovascular death. So the better that ratio is, your risk of dying improves.
What is the optimum? Is it 3 to 1 or four
Well,
to one?
optimum would be 1 to 1,
Really?
like we were 400 years ago.
Which means um, take some omega 3s. Well, now hold on a sec. I
No,
actually,
I've got a good friend. He's a cardiovascular surgeon. Every time he sees me, I'm taking my omega-3s. He always tells me, but last
yeah,
time I saw him, his and I'm eating a can of sardines every single day.
really,
What a great source of omega-3s, honestly. Probably better than the salmon.
for real.
A tin of sardines,
What
probably
about those? What about
pretty
the
sure
oysters? What about those cans of oysters? Because I like those on a cracker.
oysters are awesome.
Okay, so hold on a sec. I want to, let's just say, for the sake of conversation, someone says, I like what this guy's talking about you. I like what this guy's talking about. Mike seems to know. I'm going to go out and I'm going to go over to, well, I don't know, uh, 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 I'm not going to drop any store in the grease, like, Harvest Pure or whatever, or what's that store? The health food stores. You walk in, it's got that fun smell, those. And I'm going to start buying a bunch of omega 3s off of the shelf, pharmaceutical omega 3s. I think it's important to, well, okay, that's why I brought this up, right? I think it's important to note just because you go
Well, you can't
someplace,
buy the pharmaceutical off the shelf, right?
well,
Pharmaceutical
okay,
gotta be prescription. I would highly recommend staying away from them because I know the manufacturing process. I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole.
so it's important where you're getting your omega 3s. Is it really omega 3? I mean, just because it says omega 3 on the vial doesn't mean that's what it is. Does that
It
sound about
is, but
right?
the bigger question is it an oil like the pharmaceutical? No, it's not. It's not even an oil. So you want me to tell you about the manufacturing really quick?
Yes, do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So You get the fish, right? This is big industry. This is a billions of dollar industry kind of thing, right? They gather up the fish and they basically, they're going to squeeze the oil out of it, right? So now you've got the oil, but what are we worried about? We're worried about the mercury, the toxins, and the microplastics and stuff like that, right?
Wait. Hold on a sec. Let's just put this into perspective. There's a big net catching all this fish. Probably, I don't know, 70% of those fish are dead while they're on the net. Then they go into this big vat on the ship that is not refrigerated or frozen, and all those fish that are dead go into that. And if you're alive, you're gonna die when you get here. And then now you got all these dead fish that are just all these nastiness. That all is going into a big thing somewhere back on the mainland. They've got to figure out a way to counteract all the poisons that is. Did I describe that properly?
Right, but it's more about the mercury, the heavy metals, the plastics, and the
Okay.
toxins. And so we don't want that. 100% of all fish oil products on the market have minimal or not measurable or acceptable levels of mercury and all that. So get it out of your mind that we're concentrating fish oil and you're going to poison yourself with mercury with taking fish oil capsules. No, that's totally false. Doesn't happen because of the manufacturing process. Every fish oil on the market goes through the manufacturing process. So get it out of your mind. Doesn't mean there's zero, but it's negligible. It's not an issue at all. 100%. But what is that process? So you squeeze a fish, you generally get a triglyceride. There's some free fatty acids, there's some phospholipids, but generally you get a triglyceride. Three, right? It's a glycerin backbone with three branches off of it. And so what they do is they break that glycerin backbone, and now you have these fatty acids that are floating free, but that's really unstable. So like acid needs a base, sodium needs chloride to make salt. You can't have free fatty acids. It's very, very unstable. So you got to combine it with something. And what they combine it with is an alcohol molecule. So now you've got a fatty acid, like EPA, DHA, you got a fatty acid connected to an alcohol molecule. And that allows them to separate out and clean and get the mercury and all that stuff out. Now, and you can then concentrate those, but it's no longer an oil, it's an ethyl ester. So it's not fish oil at this point. It's an ethyl ester. Now the pharmaceuticals, they concentrate and they put it in a capsule and they sell it to you for $30 a capsule.
Wait.
And
Just
it's
like
not
that?
it's not even fish oil. What's that?
Well, I was gonna say it's just like that. It's not even a fish. Just it's not a
It's
fish
not
oil.
a fish oil.
Are
It's
they
an
selling it as a fish oil? Are
what's that?
are they selling it as such? I mean, does it
Uh,
say
I mean, I'm going to say generically, but colloquially, everybody calls it fish oil,
okay? So wait.
but it's
Now that
actually
you
not a fish oil.
okay, so
It's not even
now
an oil.
exactly. Okay. So now that you've given us the problem, you got to give us the answer because people are going to say, well, okay, doc, how do I get fish oil? How does that work?
So
how do I get
very few companies, and they're not the pharmaceutical, but very few nutrition companies reverse that process and they put it back into a triglyceride form, a reconstituted triglyceride, and they add a little bit of vitamin E to keep it from spoiling. They put it in a capsule or in a bottle and they sell it as fish oil, and it is oil derived from fish. That's great. And so that's much more expensive because you had to reverse engineer everything, put it back into triglyceride. So you
yeah.
get what you pay for, right? So you're going to pay more for a reconstituted triglyceride. If you pick up a bottle of fish oil and it does not tell you that it is in triglyceride form, you can assume it's in ethyl ester form.
Say that
Absolutely.
again. Now, just say that one more time. So these people, they're going to start looking at their labels, which they should have been doing a long time ago. They're going to pick up a bottle. of say an omega-3 fish oil if it doesn't say what again?
If it does not say it is in triglyceride form, you can assume it is in that ethyl ester, therefore it's not even a fish oil. In
Okay,
spite of what it says on, on the bottle. It may call it fish oil all day long, but if it's in an ethyl ester form, or they don't tell you, you have to assume it's in an ethyl ester form, and it's actually not even an oil at that point.
I want to get, somebody might say, some really good omega-3 and I want to get that test. How do I make that happen?
So the best thing to do is I'm going to give you I can give you a sorry, I'm just trying to think of how to best put it. I'll give you a website that you can go and you can find these products. So the balance test, right? The drip drip, send it off. Now, that same scientist, that same Norwegian scientist also figured out what's also missing in the fish oil process. When we initially take the fish oil and I said we're going to break it apart so that, and then we combine it with the alcohol. When we're breaking it apart, nature provides those fish oils in like a little, I'm sorry, nature provides the omegas in like a little ball of omega wrapped in a protective coating of polyphenols in a liposome. So it's basically a fat layer protecting the omegas. We break that apart in the manufacturing, and that's the biggest problem right there. So even when we concentrate and we put it back into triglyceride form, we don't have it in that wrapped protective coating that nature provides to us. And what this Norwegian scientist figured out is, can we replicate that? So they take the reconstituted triglyceride and mix it at the molecular level with these polyphenols, these fats from not back from the fish, because you got that whole same problem again. But he figured out how to do it with olive oil. And so if you combine the olive oil, and more importantly, you take the olives before they're ripe, when they're the most bitter. Why are they the most bitter? Because of the polyphenols protecting them from the birds and the bees and the pests, and so that the fruit will ripen. So you harvest them early and you get the extra virgin olive oil and you mix it with the right reconstituted high quality triglyceride form fish oil, it reinstitutes that ball of omega-3s wrapped in protection. So now it's really shelf stable. It lasts 5 times longer sitting out than any fish oil on the market when you do it this way.
But I'm sure you're going to tell us how we can get a hold of that.
So how you can get a hold of it? I'm going to give you a website. The company is called Zenzino, ZINZINO.com. And I would appreciate, you can only buy it through a distributor. So if you do /201-589-2357, that's my distributor number. Or you could put in a search for, Washington, I'm in Washington, D.C., or Michael Lewis, because you cannot buy it without going through a distributor. But if you put in 201-589-2357, that tags it to me. I appreciate your business as I'm trying to grow my business to help more people. So I've been looking for this team to help me, right? I told you the story about the Pentagon in 2011. I retired right after that. I've been looking for a team to help me change the world ever since. I finally found that team. So it helps me build my business, helps me change the world by helping more people.
So, just to be clear, this is an opportunity if somebody chooses to actually get into business with you, because this is, and I know we have this bad rap about MLMs, right? Um, but this
Do
is
you
an
think I would get involved in something like that if it was not the best
the real
products
deal. Yeah,
The
yeah,
real
yeah.
deal. I mean,
Well,
the
yeah,
founders of the company, it's a 20-year-old company, publicly traded. So all their financials are available.
yeah.
Publicly traded 20-year-old company. And you know what the founder's goal is? By 2050 to have 100 million customers around the world and looking at the testing and the product. They want to become the largest health prevention company in the world. That's their
And
goal.
that right there for me is the operative word, prevention, right? Let's take care of this before it turns into that, whatever that is,
We're not
right?
getting any healthier, are we, as a
No,
society?
well, and you know what? We look, the foods that we are consuming, the way they are manufacturing foods, the way they're fertilizing anything and everything, it's just no bueno, right? And so if we, and I believe this to be the truth when I listen to you talk, I know it's the truth. If we want to feel better, right? Then, and I can speak from personal experiences with the amino acids that I've been taking, right? And I just know that and everybody, look, anybody will tell you that fish oil is good for you. My concern is what you just described. How is it manufactured,
Right.
right? That's it. Now, we just have to know, uh, that that is, well, we don't have to know, but we can do our own research. Here's what I'm going to suggest to anybody that can hear my voice. And I said this before with amino acids. You are experiencing whatever you're experiencing right now. My suggestion to you is to get a hold of Mike, right? Remember that number. He's going to say it one more time in case you didn't, have your pen out, how to do this from the beginning. And in there, we can also, the website, we can talk about what we can do to get that test. But here's my suggestion to whoever you are that's listening to this. You know how you feel right now. You know how you aren't sleeping. You know all these things about yourself. Try the omegas, right? And if nothing happens, well, then you've not lost anything, but just a little bit of your money. But what if what we're saying to you is the truth, and this will transform your brain, in essence, your entire life? I mean, does that sound about right? Or, I mean, what do you got to
Absolutely.
lose? I mean, give it a go, right? And give the difference, and then give Mike kudos where it belongs. Now you're just oh, did you just now they can see that, I think, right? What you just posted, they can
I'm gonna
see.
think so. So I put in the chat zinzino.com/ 201-589-2357. So
Okay.
it's in the chat if you can access that.
Okay. Is there anything that you'd like to share with these folks before we sign off? And I want to thank you for your time because I know you're a busy guy.
Um, Yeah, one thing we didn't really talk about, and is what do you expect if you're taking a good quality omega-3 oil? And, better hair, a better heart, all that stuff is great. But what are we really talking about? What business are you in? So what we find is and you and I talked about this, the recidivism, the
Ah,
desire to drink alcohol decreases with the increase in omega-3s. Your desire for drugs, your anger levels, your all the bad things that we think about that go with addiction and alcohol and drugs and being in jail and the violence, all those things are tampened when your omega-3 levels get to where they need to be. And that's huge. Well, that literally can change the world.
one person at a time,
Well,
which is what we're about.
I'm done with one person at a time. I
Oh,
do that when I see patients. I'm trying to reach hundreds, trying to reach thousands. So
so
you
you're,
mentioned I'm also looking for people that can be as passionate about this as I am, who I realize if I can help 50 patients or 100 patients at a time, what if I could teach 50 or 100 people to
yeah,
also help 50 or 100 people at a time? Now that's talking the power of duplication, and that's how we
yeah.
can change the world.
So you want to cast a wider net, no pun intended, right?
Oh,
Talking about
absolutely.
fish.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
You can change the world one person at a time, or you can change them a million at a time. What do you think is going to be better?
There you go. Well, we are definitely on the same page, my friend, in reference to that. I mean, that's why we do what we do. That's why Beacon Recovery even exists because I've got this insatiable desire for people to be happy, right?
Great. So what if we can provide that nutritional foundation for
Yeah,
that happiness and for the recovery? And that's really important. You're kind of, you know, spitting into the wind in some cases if you don't have that nutritional foundation in
true.
place and you're
Yeah.
trying to deal with recovery.
Absolutely. Well, listen, you've been in touch. By the way, the rest of this is going to get edited out, but you've been in touch with Maddie for us to do what we got to do. I think I saw an invoice. Did I see an invoice somewhere?
It's not an invoice. Jenny Lynn,
Yes.
she wanted to know, should we be, a partner versus a customer? And I said, well, let me show you what the numbers are. And as a partner, you get the best wholesale. I
Well,
mean,
and
literally those.
she,
I want to show you, like, you
yeah,
saved.
a
It
lot.
costs twice as much to be a customer, which I'm happy to make you a customer. But if you're a partner, you don't have to grow business. We got clinics all over the country, all over the
Well,
world. They're not building a business. They're just
well,
in it to
yeah, and
to get
she
the wholesale pricing. And that's
She she had voiced some disdain, as a lot of people do, with reference to the MLM aspect, and I told her I could give two shits. I could listen. I
don't
could
need to,
care.
you don't,
I don't need to do
there's no
anything.
MLM if you don't go out
I
and
if
recruit anybody.
There it
If
is.
you're just, if
Well,
you're,
but here's the fun part. If we have someone that takes these products, that does this while they're in treatment at Beacon Recovery, and they realize the benefits personally, at some point, this person's going to graduate from Beacon Recovery while they become accustomed to using these products. When they graduate, we can then go to you and say, this person is no longer a patient at my facility, but they want to get involved in the business, right? Now,
it's a half a step back. They want to continue on the products, and you basically, I can set you up because if you don't want to get involved in that, I'm happy to have them as a customer after they graduate from your program.
no,
But
what
if
I'm
they also
thinking,
want to get involved in the business,
well,
thousand percent.
it just makes sense though, because what I'm thinking is they get involved. Of course, they're going to stay a customer as they're going to be involved in the business, but they're going to have a constant, for lack of better terms, stream of downline. People just like them that started off as a patient, graduated the program, and then gets involved in the business by continuing to take the product, right? It's just, and if they sign up, right, then we would transfer them being the person that's distributing all the products for the people instead of Beacon Recovery. We'll just let this one go, and they then, and I will be there because I'm buying all this. My company is going to provide while you're in treatment at Beacon Recovery. We're going to buy, just like I'm buying the amino acids. We're going to do the same thing
Right.
with this, right? So there's got to be there. I know there's something there. They get out, they graduate, they become a continued customer, but they get involved in the business. Then they would get credit for all the volume, I'm hoping, of product that we buy personally for somebody else, and they're no longer a patient. And so that's what I'm looking at doing. And so for me, that's a win-win,
Yeah,
right? So I took her from being, negative about, MLM. Forget about, I don't care really. And I told her, do we care? Let's get the best price possible. I'll sign up as an MLM distributor and I won't do shit for the distribution. I'll just continue to buy it. And you guys aren't,
exactly.
oh, then she
And
said,
that's
well,
what I'm
do you,
saying. That ultimate practitioner kit, you're getting a 65% discount on that.
yeah. Well, now she had the question that I'm going to ask you. Do do we have to maintain a minimum and I have to bring in two people to do it a month or anything like that? I
No,
just
we have clinics that zero anything.
done. Done. That's the way we're gonna go. So I will send you or have Jenny Lynn send you or somebody send you, Maddie, when this podcast is gonna air. That way, if you want to, distribute it to folks that kind of thing. Because
Right.
I think the more people that see and hear this information, the better we are all gonna be. It's good stuff, right? Really is. So, thanks for your time, my friend. We will definitely be
Okay.
in touch. Now I've been informed not to touch anything, so I'm going to don't touch any buttons, right? Because I don't want to lose all this. And so there's a method to it. I'm going to go
Well,
downstairs and grab somebody.
I don't know if I told you, like Christina, who runs the addiction, nutrition for addiction, the conference that we were where we met.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We did a podcast, and at the end she goes, "Oh shit, I forgot to hit the record button."
Ah,
And I just laughed. I said, "Well, that was a good dress rehearsal. When do you want to do it for real?"
let's do the real thing. Yeah, well, I might, but that happened to me once, right? Once, and that's why these two girls were up here. I don't know if you probably heard them, but they were in here like bees, making sure that because I got the camera for on my laptop. I've got one sitting in front of me, and I got another one over here because we want to make sure that when they edit this, we can get all kinds of different angles and make this as informative and as interesting as humanly possible. Because this is good stuff, right? It really is, and I believe with everything that I am that this is going to benefit a lot of people. And the more people that hear about this, the more people they get to hear about this. And we can do just what you said and change this more than one person at a time. This being this insidious, it's by design. It is. Everything they're doing is for us to be unhealthy. It really is. And I said it before and I'll say it
Well,
again.
I don't think it was nefarious to begin with, but
Oh,
then like, hmm, maybe you're
hold
onto
on.
something here.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that when Rockefeller realized that petroleum could do what it could do, and he got together with Carnegie, when they changed the way medicine was taught in
Oh,
schools, that wasn't I mean, come on,
oh
that was
no, no. Well,
bullshit.
that was, to make themselves money. To
Very
make,
much so. Yeah. Well, what about when they arrested people like you back in the day that would contradicted what
well,
they
come
were
on.
doing for their
We're not so far away from that with the last 4 years, are we?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I just did a podcast with Shelly Joe, and I don't fuck around. I said on that podcast, I'm not having these conversations I don't even know if he's a human being, right? Biden. I said his name on the podcast. I honestly don't know if he's human. Let me just share a quick story with you about that knucklehead. And let's go back to Obama. He's doing an interview and they're talking and it's tongue in cheek. He's talking about Obama being doing a third term. And he's like, I wish I could just be in somebody's ear. Da 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 da. Then fast forward to Biden walking into somewhere where there's a Marine standing out front. As Biden's walking in, he says the words, and I quote out loud, salute the Marine. He says those words, meaning
Wait a minute.
somebody's in his ear. Somebody's got a
I'll
microphone in
salute
Biden's
the
ear.
Marine. Oh,
Salute
somebody's.
them.
Oh,
And
okay.
somebody's telling him to salute the Marine because that's what you're supposed to do as a president. But he, listening to these people, says the words out loud, salute the Marine because he's
Well,
doing what.
he saw like, he'd be giving a speech and he'll like blah 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 blah. Pause here because
So,
the guy
he,
didn't have two
yes,
brain cells to rub together.
no, but I couldn't have these conversations. My ultimate goal is that somewhere along the way, I'm hoping that RFK catches wind to what we're doing. I know that man is searching for a facility like mine. I know he is one that's got a recidivism at 10.42%. I know he does. I know he is because he's in recovery himself. But I could not go down this path.
What if we can get that down to 1 or 2% just with fish oil?
You know, at 10.42 that I can
You're
measure it.
already,
I'm already
50
at.
times
I'm
better
already
than
at.
most.
But see, I like the way you think. Go big or go home, right? Seriously. I'm all about it, which is why we're bringing this stuff in and we're going to be able to measure this stuff, right? But this administration, they give a shit. I believe it with every ounce of I do. I think President Trump, I really believe that he cares. Now, maybe I'm full of shit, but based on what he's doing, based on what he's done, based on what he said, I believe him. I do. I think is he a man? Of course he's a man, right? But he's a good man. And I really believe that he's got your interest in mind. And I think he really believes in doing what's best for us as a country, which is why he's brought some of the Patel, which is a badass. I mean, Bongino, right? Some of these guys that I resonate with, RFK, right? So That's my goal is to, and I've got a meeting next week with a guy that's going to assist me with opening this program up across. He's got accounts in, I think he said like 38 states of facilities just like mine, right? That I'm going to go and give my program away. Just so you know, that's I have this program where we can actually make really good money with Medicaid. Really, really good money, depending on the state, right?
Yeah.
Some states pay quite a bit more than others, and there's some states that, that's why I want to get RFK involved, but so he can go whip the shit out of California, New York, and New Jersey, Colorado, and all these bullshit states where they're not paying anything for Medicaid, right? And zero in on the states that are paying good money with Medicaid. But even in Utah, right? When I tell people that are in the know in this business, and I say, I can make $630 per patient per day on Medicaid. They say to me, "What? How do you do that?" Right? But I know what every state pays, and I know how every state pays, and I want to be able to go to the facilities like mine in that state that aren't even billing Medicaid right now, right? Because, well, it's Medicaid and they've got all this murky water. I can clear all that murkiness up and I can hold your hand and I will show you how to do it, and I'll do it for free. I had somebody tell me yesterday, a facility, I don't know, whatever, Wisconsin, and she said, "Well, why are you giving this away for free?" And I'm like, "Well, because people are dying." Right? Don't get me wrong, I'll make money. Every one of my vendors has all agreed that they will pay me a commission and these guys know what they're doing in billing Medicaid and dealing with Medicaid. They're experts. So whoever you are, you will pay less with my vendors than you're currently paying right now. You'll get a much higher level of care, and I will teach you how to make money with Medicaid. And you will be able to serve a population that you're not messing with right now. The people that are on Medicaid, the people that don't have any money, right? So it's a win-win. And
Right.
that's what we're doing, right? And
Well, it's a
bring it
win-win, but you're also improving the health of America,
big time.
which is
Yes.
another really big win because
It's
God knows we need it.
well, and that's what I tell my staff. You get to be involved with something. We're going to change the way this industry does what it does. Literally, uh, from exposing the insurance companies and their insidious role in making people relapse. Right, that's a conversation for a whole nother day, and talk about what we can do. And I can go to you, a facility owner. I mean, these people, and I pissed them off because I had one of my staff members call them ahead of time and say, "Okay, what are you doing?" Right? Um, if somebody's going to come to your facility, what's a day in the life look like in your facility? And it's the same as every other facility, Mike. They spend I'm not making this shit up, 6 fucking hours in the group room. For real. And I'm like, how in the hell are
I
you getting
told
your
you art therapy's got a place.
it's dude. Well, listen, but no, I'm talking. Well, maybe, but what we do is we do individual. We flip it around, right? So, knowing what you get paid in Medicaid, they're making. I think we calculated what was it, ZJ? $120. It's $120 per patient per day, give or take. We take them to just under. Was it 390? So I showed this facility, I can take your revenue stream, right? Uh, we I think we increased them like just over $200,000. They had 40 patients in a PHP level of care, another 20 something in IOP. We can take your revenue and increase it over $200,000 a month using Medicaid.
You
But
can
more
actually keep the doors
importantly,
open.
what?
You can keep the doors open with that.
Very much so. But I can hit you as a business owner from a financial perspective, and that's good and dandy for you. But what's really important is you can give your folks a much higher level of care and a sickening ability to stay clean. You increase their percentages of staying clean. It's like night and day. And that is the ultimate success. It's not how much money you can make as a facility owner, it's what level of care you can offer that you are not offering right now. And I will show you how to do it. And if it doesn't make you any more money, if it doesn't work, you don't pay me. It's free. Literally, I'm not going to charge you. I'll even fly to where you are to get this thing on my dime, right? To get this thing set up. So while I'm over there doing a free assessment for your facility, right? You've got somebody from your facility flying into where I am at, standing in for 2 weeks training at my facility
Right.
at the exact same time, right? So it's a win-win. I know that this is going to happen, and I know that we're going to get. I'm going to continue to talk to, as like you are, as many people as humanly possible to get the opportunity to get this administration to take a look. Oh, and by the way, I will tell you, if you know anybody in your circle of friends, and you've got some heavy hitters that you're friends with, get me into this administration, right? I can give them some information that will make their head spin, really. So that's just a favor from one friend to another.
I
I would
will I'll see what I can do. So, like Artemis Simopoulos, she's the one that sent the white paper to HHS, the White House, DoD, saying this omega-6 to 3 ratio is out of control and damaging not just our people but national security. She lives 2 miles from me, so we're
hook,
figuring
hook,
we're due to get coffee sometime maybe next week, I think, and so
hook a brother up, baby. I mean, all
we'll
I
see.
want, and listen, if you talk to this woman, I will fly on my dime to where she is to buy her lunch just for her to hear what I have to say, really. And she can pick the restaurant, she can pick the most expensive. I don't care. I just want somebody to hear what I have to and to see what we're doing, right? So wherever she is in any, I don't care, right? I got a passport. If she happens to be over, it doesn't matter. Really, I will
That
fly. You
text
can
isn't
tell her
back from Greece yet, so
I will fly to where she is on my dime, spend the night, take her to lunch, and fly back home the next day. Let me know. Thank you, my friend. You want to come push this button? We'll talk to you soon.
okay.
Okay, we'll
Thanks.
see you.